everybody! Now I'm going to teach you guys some characteristics of exponential functions, but we're only going to focus on the domain, range, and asymptotes. All right, looking at this first graph, the first thing I'm going to introduce to you guys is what an asymptote is. Basically, when you graph an exponential function, you're going to see a slight curve, and that's because there's an imaginary line, which is called the asymptote, in which the graph can never cross over. So I just labeled that imaginary line to be those green dots you see on this graph. That's my asymptote. So I will look and see, where does this asymptote cross over the y-axis? And remember, this is the y-axis. As you can see, it crosses it through the number 3 on the y-axis. So therefore, my asymptote is y equals 3. All right, now for my domain. Because there are arrows on both the left side and the right side of the graph, my domain will always, always, always be from negative infinity to positive infinity. That will never change. Now for your range, I always teach this cheer in class. Starting from the bottom to the top, that's where it starts and where it stops. Starting from the bottom to the top, that's where it starts and where it stops. So let's look at this whole graph. The bottom part of my graph is right here. And the top part of my graph is up here, right? Looking at the bottom of my graph, what do you see down there? Yep, the asymptote. And looking at the top, what do you see? An arrow going all the way up. This arrow is going to go up to positive infinity. So my range is going to be from my asymptote to infinity, which is going to be 3 to positive infinity. And you always put a bracket next to the number and parentheses for infinity. Let's look at another example. All right, looking at this one, as you can see, my asymptote goes through the number 5. So therefore, my asymptote is going to be y equals 5. Domain never changes, so it's going to be negative infinity to positive infinity. And let me say the cheer again for range. Starting from the bottom to the top, that's where it starts and where it stops. So again, this is the bottom part of my graph, and this will be considered the top, and that's because there's nothing else above that. All right, as you can see on the bottom part of my graph, I technically have an arrow, but it's pointing down. Where do you think it's pointing down, all the way down to? Negative infinity. And the top part of my graph is where that asymptote was, which we said was at 5. So my range is going to be from negative infinity to 5. And you always put parentheses next to the infinity signs and bracket next to numbers. And that's it.